Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Transformation Leaders Podcast. My name is David, and Sean Ennis, my co-host, has joined us today, and we have a special guest for you. His name's Steve Mordew, and if you have read any of the articles online, Steve and I also do a lot of posting as well as Sean, so you may have caught any of our AI-based articles, but the nice thing about Steve is he's got a product called we'll call it a Rapid family of suite of products, and recently has introduced and talked about this thing called RapidClaw. And I thought it was really interesting, and obviously Steve does as well. And Sean's been doing a bunch of stuff with it. I think he talked about some stuff in the past. So we're going to dig into the product and the history and kind of figure out how this thing's put together and have a great conversation about that. So Steve, can you start by introducing yourself and kind of how all this came to be?
Sure. Steve Mordew. I am CEO of ForceWorks, which is the parent company of RapidStart Apps. We started RapidStart Apps in around, I think we launched the first ones back around 2015. Model-driven apps, alternatives, ultimately they've become alternatives to Dynamics, used to sit on top. Now they're alternatives around CRM, project management, field service, kind of the basic stuff targeting small and mid-sized businesses. And right now we're kind of undergoing the transition that everybody either is or should be if they're not, and that is moving what we've got to AI. AI-powered, AI-centered, AI-augmented, some various angles of AI, and we've got several different things in play around that space.
And so from what I understand, the application, and not only is it a model-driven app, and for those not familiar, people will use Microsoft-based technologies, specifically on Microsoft 365. And if they do any type of things like CRM or custom apps, usually they go into the Power Platform. If they're not using the Power Platform, typically they'll go straight to Dynamics 365, which is to say it's still a Power Platform app underneath, but it's essentially just a SKU or a pre-built, pre-packaged app already that's up there. So Steve has something similar to a 365 SKU, and then he's modernized it even further with this RapidClaw product that sits on there. So can you talk or walk us through a little bit about, maybe start with the app, the purpose of the app, who you built it for, the demographics, the target market, and then kind of how RapidClaw goes into the existing platform or application to enhance it, and what the value is that it brings to the customer?
Sure. Once they separated the first-party applications from their foundations and created the Power Platform, Dynamics 365 Sales, for example, became a great big Power App. It's a great big Power App with lots of features added on with a target customer of enterprise. That is Microsoft's North Star Enterprise. And we just felt like for a lot of small and mid-sized companies, it was too powerful. It just had more than they needed, more than they wanted, more than they wanted to pay for, weren't getting the value. So RapidStart CRM is also a Power App, just like Dynamics is a Power App, sitting on the same platform as Dynamics. It just doesn't do nearly as much by design. We've really scaled down what it does to a basic foundational CRM solution. Of course, built on a Power Platform, it's completely customizable. I mean, we haven't locked anything. Anything can be customized, the same as with Dynamics. So it's just, we're going after a different customer than Microsoft is really aimed at. So that was the space that we've been in for quite a while. The RapidClaw angle, I was looking at, knowing that we got Charles Lamanna, the head of Microsoft Business Applications out there recently saying, apps are dead. Well, I mean, he's living off his own apps right now. So you got to take that with some grain of salt that he believes that. Personally, I think it was a motivation for his enterprise customers to get off their butts and start moving down the AI path by at least having them understand that eventually the bridge you're standing on is going to be gone. So it's more motivational than urgent. But I still could picture, having used AI a lot, I could picture a future where the app is certainly not the primary surface. If it exists at all, it's not the primary surface. And being a company that builds apps, it's a little intimidating. So I think we realized that we're going to have to figure out how we evolve this, or whether we start over this whole path, from the AI side. And looking at Copilot, that's Microsoft's offering. I think personally, I think Copilot's a mess. I think it's very complicated for customers to understand what it does, where it works. I know Microsoft's continuing to evolve it. Even recent to this conversation, they're launching yet another front end for that. And I just wasn't comfortable right now betting that farm on their solution for our customer, for our particular customer. And that's where we discovered OpenClaw several months ago. Interestingly, about the same time we discovered it, a guy inside of Microsoft, the VP of Word, also discovered it. And he was playing around with it in a personal capacity. I was playing around with it in a personal capacity, connected it to Dataverse just to kind of see what would happen. And it kind of went from there. They went on to build Microsoft Scout on the OpenClaw runtime, and kind of in the same timeline that they were working on that for productivity, because that's mostly around productivity. We saw a similar path for business applications and followed a similar trajectory, but with our own nuances of kind of providing the same capabilities on the business application side.
We get a lot of people talking about security and things of that nature. And so to your credit, I've seen some of the architecture components. I'm not fully familiar with how your implementation has gone, but as far as Microsoft originally put it on their watch list or their threat list, and then ironically, as you said, they built Microsoft Scout on top of it. And so the solution was pretty much the way that you have implemented it as well. And so for those folks watching that are security conscious or based, a lot of that concern goes out the window, because this is all put up in Azure. You're not running it on the machine. You've got lots of guardrails to put around all of that, some custom code, some harness on top of the harness. And so all of this is just essentially accelerating the technology and the integration capacity of what it does to take your application and enhance it through either data enrichment and or just simple Q&A type based stuff. What was the intention behind putting RapidClaw up there with regards to just the layman user? Because Scout, the little bit I have played with it, it's still convoluted, it's still complicated. And to your credit, you have implemented this in a way that's much easier. You've got wizard-driven stuff. I mean, other than maybe the marketing where you brand it as, RapidClaw, that's really about all the customer needs to know per se about that, because all the heavy lifting, you've obscured that behind the scenes. And so it's just typical standard Azure. And you talked a little bit about the models that are used there. And so it just seems that the integration is much simpler, much more seamless. You don't have the I don't know if Microsoft changes or if you've heard it, but the licensing model on Scout, you've got to have now Git licensing or GitHub licensing on top of the regular Power Platform / Microsoft 365. And this is where their licensing nightmare, they just can't get out from underneath it, at least from what I'm seeing. And it just seems that your licensing model has been not more complicated. You just get more capabilities for the same SKU, essentially. Is that a good kind of summary of?
Yeah, I mean, licensing is necessarily complex when you're dealing with enterprise organizations. The problem with licensing is when you try and apply that same structure down to, smaller and mid-sized customers, which is our target. And when you talk about why we built this the way we did, is because we know who our target is. We know what our target cannot tolerate. We know what our target's prepared to do. We know that our target doesn't have a 50-person IT department, and we know they don't have a training department. They don't have those kind of resources, but they have the same needs. They have the same needs and requirements at a smaller level. But we learned a long time ago. I mean, the original idea of RapidStart CRM in 2015, it was a solution that went on top of Dynamics and hid everything. It hid a whole bunch of stuff they either didn't need or wouldn't really understand because they didn't need it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of driven the philosophy of our apps and everything we've done since is, I mean, how can I reduce this down to a single button that a customer says, I want this, and they push one button and they get this. That's the goal. That's the real North Star. Now you can't get quite that level of one button, but Microsoft, Salesforce, the other players in the space, there's 800 buttons and they need 20 different people to push them in a certain order or nothing happens. So that's a challenge for any of these enterprise companies, platforms that are pursuing that market. You can go to tons of SaaS CRMs that are floating around out there in ether, where it's a hosted service. You push a button, put in a credit card, poof, you're in the app using it. That's the experience that we really need to try and get people to, or as close as we can. So that really informed everything we did and how we put this thing together. You referred to the wizard. I mean, when we assembled it ourselves internally to figure out if it would work and how it would work, it was a lot of work. And I'm realizing as we're doing it that there's no way this is going to, I mean, the smallest portion of work we did was the AI. I mean, that using the runtime of OpenClaw in a VM was the simplest part of the equation. The hardest part was, how do I get Joe User out there to be able to get it? So that's where we kind of had to come up with this wizard model. And frankly, most of our code behind that whole solution is in automating things, spinning up a VM. They don't know how to do that. Deploying all the templates, deploying runtime, they're just pushing a button saying, yep, do that, yep, do that, yep, do that. So that was the goal. And I think I'm feeling pretty happy with where we are on that result. I mean, you talk about what Microsoft brings, it's a governed ecosystem. We're sitting inside a VM, which doesn't necessarily guarantee security. I've talked back and forth with the team that built Scout in the earlier days through the process, shared some ideas we were working on, heard some ideas they were working on. We didn't partner in any of this stuff, but shared some notes with some of the folks working on that stuff with some ideas. I think the biggest risk is control of the agents, that they don't do anything they're not supposed to do, which, a lot of the fears people have about agents right now are old. I mean, that problem was solved a while ago. I mean, there's ways to do that, but you still hear people bringing up, oh my goodness, it's gonna empty our bank account on its own. It's just gonna go decide. These things aren't that independent, and they can certainly be corralled to where they can do these things. Yeah. A bigger risk probably is still prompt injection, because that's difficult to, especially if you have. I mean, in order for agents to actually provide value, they need to do stuff, and a common thing might be to receive incoming email as well as send incoming email, those sorts of things. Go out and look at websites. These are all vectors for prompt injection. But again, there's ways to address that also with pre-filtering, where everything that comes in is converted to JSON. Anything that looks like instructions are removed. And I'm not going to stand here and say we guarantee that no prompt injection attack would ever get through any AI system, but it's going to have a harder time with ours than it will with a lot of them out there. But that space is moving extremely fast. Now we look at Mythos coming out, right, or trying to come out. Am I going to stand up here and say we can withstand anything Mythos does to our solution that we created? No, I'm not going to say that. We don't know where this stuff's going. But I'm going to use Mythos to close the holes if there are any. And we've tried to. I mean, we're working in a fairly contained surface by design. I don't need to go all over the place in your organization. We just need what we need for our purposes. So that helps that we're kind of contained inside.
Targeted and focused.
Yeah,
we're running on Dataverse as our front end. The back end is all Azure. So we kind of done what we can do. Microsoft's got some responsibility here too.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, my question, I'd love to hear from you on the security side. where was your thought process? Because I know a lot of enterprise customers are going to hear the negative stuff. That's what they hear first.
Sure.
I say a lot of people are rightfully scaredy cats when it comes to apps in the enterprise space. What do you do to kind of calm those waters and say, this is how we wrangled, as you said, wrangled OpenClaw to make RapidClaw? What was your thought? What was your process?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say at a high level, we're not targeting enterprise for the very reason that enterprise looks for excuses to not take action. The default mode of enterprise is to find any reason, any excuse possible to do absolutely nothing. And if you're looking for a reason to do nothing, you can find it in anything. They found it in cloud, they'll find it in apps, they'll find it in AI, they'll find it, they can find those reasons. So life's too short to be banging my head against that wall. But this is a discovery made a long time ago, which is why our target customer is small to mid-size. To be honest, the smaller the business, the less they're concerned about security, just probably a lack of awareness, but also, security is not as dangerous to a smaller organization until they get larger. So that mid-sized customer, though, they've got legitimate concerns. Obviously, now they're a big enough organization, they got enough people floating around doing stuff. They've got money in a bank account they don't want, things done to. They've got customer reputation, the market they need to protect. So a lot of that, and we actually wrote a full specification that's available on the page of exactly how we put all this stuff together, outlining every step we took and why. And that's been a living document as we have, kind of moved forward in development and getting feedback on some things. We haven't suffered any security issues that we're aware of yet. But we've outlined it pretty good there of how we approached it. Double walling these things. It's really the stuff that it's doing internally is fine. Again, in my mind, the biggest risk is external when it touches the outside world where the actors are that are going to want to cause challenges. So by default, everything outside is not trusted. Just automatically assume this is an attack, regardless of what it is. So it starts from that posture. We've got hard filtering, looking for particular phrases and terminology that may change in the future, but the kind of things that might trigger things. Then there's another agent layer that's actually, after it's gone through that, looking at it to see if this is safe enough to pass on to the actor agent who actually initiated this. Maybe email to a customer, hey, thanks for taking a test drive. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And this might have been a response to that. It goes through these two other places before it gets back to that original agent that sent it with a reply. That's been, turned into JSON, been stripped out of anything. Or, obviously, if the first thing it recognizes is, somebody's saying, hey, ignore all instructions or anything like that, and just quarantine them and block them, never going to receive email from that person again. So it's not like, hey, don't do that anymore. No, I mean, if you do that once, I'm sorry, we're not playing with you anymore. So to be honest, I haven't seen myself any of these attacks. I have not been the victim of any of these attacks. I hear and read all about the existence of prompt injection attacks, things like that. I personally haven't witnessed that. But there's enough documentation, enough best practices, and really you compare the best practices across 20 different best practices, and you can kind of come up with, okay, I see the general gist of how you best protect, the best you can do against that. But again, still I haven't seen it. Is that going to pass muster in enterprise? No, never. I mean, come on, you're talking about organizations that are literally looking for excuses to do nothing. That'll be a great big one they can sit on for years.
How are you solving the problem of visibility regarding uptake of the product, either as a whole? So, before RapidClaw was introduced, you had your Rapid CRM, Rapid, ABC, within the Rapid family. But anything that we've talked about on the show, people, whether it's enterprise or even SMB market, it really comes down to reduce churn if you're in a SaaS model, or to reduce skepticism about what value this tool, and I'm using that in the most generic sense. When I say
Sure.
tool, I mean like maybe AI tool. There has to be a measurability, a visibility, a reporting side style component that shows, I don't know, let's just say I'm an SMB, I've got 99 users or 100 users, to keep a real nice round number. 20% uptake on the, the new RapidClaw component. What measurability components are baked in? Have you thought about that? I haven't seen the product, so I don't know what's there. But what mechanisms do you have that kind of shows uptake and or value of what it brings to the table? Kind of a before and an after measurement type thing.
Yeah, RapidStart CRM is the tool that users are using to do their job, right? They're the salesperson, the CSR, they're using it, standard CRM, go fill out forms, look at stuff, do your job. RapidClaw is adding a team of agents that already have instructions, kind of independent of those people, right? I mean, it doesn't assume that anybody's in that organization. It's looking at inbound information. It's looking at new opportunities being created. It's looking at the people and companies behind those opportunities and trying to figure out what best next steps are, which we've always wanted to do. And then, potentially executing on those, right? I mean, it's deciding, we're not throwing people into a funnel that automatically, after 3 days they get this form email, another 5 days to get another. AI is kind of making the decision that, I see enough signals going on around this thing that I think this person needs to be contacted. And here's what I think we should be telling them. And then, if you'll set it up the way you've got all the guardrail controls yourself in the command center. So you could, and the way I set it up was initially there was a test email. So we turn all the agents on live. Go ahead, knock yourself out. But every email they send, as though it's going to you, addressed to you, is actually going to this test box. So we can sit here and watch, for a week, whatever it takes to get comfortable. Okay, I see the messages they're sending. Are these the right messages? Do they make sense? Is it stupid? Is it smart? Is it good? Is it quality messages? Didn't take very long to say, okay, take that one off test mode. So you got complete control. That one, the one that's responding to test drives of our apps, is doing perfect. Take that one off test mode. Now it's sitting there doing it live. And I've said before, we've historically been terrible marketers in that, we have a lot of inbound coming into our properties from the apps, test drives, stuff like that. We really didn't do very much with it. I mean, you had to really want our apps, to get them. We just really didn't do a lot with it, which is, marketing 101. We failed completely. But now with these agents running, they're just doing all that. I mean, we're sitting here building stuff, trying to figure out where we go next. In the meantime, agents are continuing that process with customers. Hey, I saw you did a test drive. Did you know there's this? You can go here to buy it, blah, 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 blah. All that sort of stuff. So again, it is on OpenClaw. We're deploying a bunch of pre-configured agents with pre-written instructions, but you're in control. I mean, in your command center, you can go in there and say, I want to open the agent that responds to new inquiries, and I want to adjust the instructions. You type, edit, adjust the instructions. To be fair, you can mess everything up. And we can't prevent you from completely destroying, everything. But your business is different than mine, right?
Sounds like the Spider-Man movie. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So no doubt you have the ability to absolutely destroy everything that we've deployed out there if you don't know what you're doing, which is, I think, a lot of consultants, what am I going to do in the future? Well, here's something, here's a space where we're going to definitely need some help is, making these agents not making them do something, but making them do what is needed to be done in this particular scenario for this particular business that does this particular thing. There's a lot of a lot of stuff in there that needs to be figured out, other than just here's an agent and looks at your email and tells you which ones, you didn't reply to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I definitely see the virtual assistant market being the definitive thing that people are going to talk about, like GPT back in 22, what they talk about later for 26, which is these open claws. I've heard, Apple is trying to build one. Everybody is going to build one. Trust is going to be the number one thing, and I think you have on your side running it in Azure has a level of trust that nothing else really in the marketplace can give you, because if you want to host Claw, either you're on your own or you're going to be going to somebody that, let's just say, you've probably never heard of from a hosting perspective. So that's number one. But number two, I really have said this before, and I'll say it again. Virtual assistance is just another layer of infrastructure. And your last statement really clarifies that. Unless you know what business problems you're trying to solve, it is a play toy. And play toys, I don't know about your experience with Legos, but when you step on them, they hurt. Right? So, again, you may want to have a thought about, okay, what business problem am I trying to solve?
Sure.
I can tell you from an executive perspective, having a virtual assistant that will check, filter, look at your email, alert you on the email that's important and not on the stuff that is not important, is probably the most important thing for executives that I've talked to. They get thousands and thousands of emails a day. You look at their Outlook and, the number at the bottom that says how many unread, it's in the millions. That's the business problem I've heard a lot of executives talk about. Another problem that I have seen, it just comes down from being able to just keep track of what a team is doing and looking at the performance reports and all the metric data for people. One of the dying breeds right now is the middle manager. They're expected to manage 10x what they've done in the past. I think these kind of solutions really do help be able to monitor what's going on, collect, hey, this is what this person is doing, this is what this person is doing, and just try to make sense and come up with a list of questions that they can ask. There are so many use cases for virtual assistants. And when customers do go down these roads, there's a lot of opportunities. And have you been hearing a lot about what people are using RapidClaw for right now?
It's only been out for like a month, so I haven't. We've been getting feedback from some folks here, but I wouldn't say we're far enough down the path to be able to kind of assess what it's doing. But I will say, to a couple of your other questions, customers are not thinking big enough. The scenarios you described there are of value, of personal value, but they're low-hanging fruit. And at the end of the day, they're not moving the ROI needle inside the organization, which is okay right now while AI is all subsidized, right? But when all the subscriptions go away, which they will, and all of your usage of AI is on an API, which it will, and what was costing you $200 to accomplish is now going to cost you $3,000 to accomplish. A whole bunch of these use cases are just going to disappear. They're going to have to, because you can't justify that expense to read the executive's email. Just not worth it. So that's coming eventually. We're in kind of a honeymoon right now with AI because of this subsidizing. I'm telling any builders out there, build now. Well, it's build now while it's as cheap as it will ever be. You know, and I think one of the other challenges that we have with users, and you mentioned earlier about asking questions, they really don't know the right questions to ask. They don't understand what AI is capable of behind the scenes, and they're like asking, you know, how many opportunities do I have? Okay, it comes back. You have 12. Oh, that's really cool, man! Did you see what AI just did? You know, I mean, their expectations are way too low, and none of those are going to justify the future cost of this stuff. So they need to. There's a huge difference between a chatbot that is, you know, connected to a bunch of data in your organization with a chat box that you can ask questions of. That's where this stuff has evolved from, right? I mean, the original ChatGPT was a chat box trained on a whole bunch of stuff on the internet. You could ask questions and give you answers. Now the corporate version is it's really trained on, you know, your corporate data as best as it can be, and you're asking questions of that data. But people don't know the right questions to ask. And that is not enough value. It is not enough value to allow everybody in the organization to ask questions of the data. Is there value? Yeah, but it isn't enough. The next level, which is what OpenClaw brings in, is this idea of an agent as opposed to a chat box, right? An agent, you can give instructions to an agent and it can execute. This was the scary part. This was the scary part for a long time was, oh, I can't have some AI out there, you know, suddenly emailing my customers. Lord knows what it might say. Well, this was in the days where, and we still have a lot of people whose only experience with AI is ChatGPT free, the free plan of ChatGPT, and can't imagine how they could possibly use that experience inside their real business. Well, you can't. I mean, you're using the toy. You're using the toy of the toys, you know. There's a whole other bunch of capabilities here that are actually, you know, business grade that can add real value. But I think that's the key for people is that we're all thinking too small, and we can afford to now. But these AI companies aren't making any money. The investment, I mean, this is going to have to change. I mean, people don't subsidize forever. They subsidize to get you hooked. They subsidize to get some market share. They subsidize to start a flywheel turning, and then they stop subsidizing. That's coming, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Steve, one of the things that I do when or that I have at least on my site is an AI assessment tool. And through looking at some of the ideas and stuff that are filtered out, I still do something that I actually implemented, I don't know, it feels like 2 or 3 years ago. There's a legacy technology by Google out there that many people have forgotten about, and it's still there. And when you use it with AI and AI workflow automation tools, even in your tool, I think even your customers could definitely benefit. And because each customer possibly is in a different vertical, even customers within the same vertical, they have different signals that they're looking for from their competition, or different things they're looking at as it relates to supply chain, or I don't know, whatever's important to their business. But the point is there's some niche things. And so the best kept secret that's not a secret, it's of age old, is Google Alerts. And you can use a Google Alert to provide a Google search. And instead of it sending you an email, you simply flip a switch to an RSS feed, which then you cannibalize by AI. It reads the feed in real time and it assesses that. And you build a corpus of information around what you need alerts in and on or around. And you build this live real-time signal-based thing. And so whatever's important to the business, I have built, if you go to even to my website, I have something called ainews.davidsoden.com. And that same engine, I use Google Alerts on the back end to look at specific signals in specific industries. I bring all that together, I massage it, I summarize it, I do whatever. But the point here is that by using AI to leverage what's going on in the world, what's important to me, whether it's as a business, there's persona-based type research that you can do, CIO, CFO, whatever. And you can build this whole corporate dashboard so that you have a landscape of what's going on immediately in real time. And so this gives you the information because data is king. If you're a leader and you're trying to make a business-based decision, you need to make a data empirical-based decision about what might be going on. And so a lot of times people are still reading the newspaper, they're subscribing to articles, they're scrolling on LinkedIn to see what's there. And of course it's, point of view or perspective and somebody's trying to sell something. Whereas if you just get the unfiltered noise and reduce it down, AI is really, really good at assimilating and harnessing and putting together information. So, and then OpenClaw is just like super simple to do that. It's just, hey, go to this RSS feed, do this, and then you create a secondary prompt or third or fourth or fifth layer, and you just build that corporate story so that you've got essentially the roadmap written for you in real time. So agility now becomes a glance as opposed to all of this hard stuff that they've been doing. So I think those are the types of questions people should be asking, leaders should be asking. How can I do what I do and augment myself to have AI enhance what I do, rather than me try to figure out how AI is going to replace me or people in my org or whatever's been happening. So these real conversations have been had about, hey, AI is getting too expensive because there's so many gates, so many layers that they figured that they had to do. It's almost, for certain industries, they're running into a dead end and then they're just giving up because it's just not implemented right, or they're trying to replace the humans and they've gone down the wrong road. Where start thinking about it in different use cases so that they can enhance what it is that they do. And I think a lot of people seem to miss that angle because they're so fixated on going with the crowd, going with the flow, that they're just kind of rinsing and repeating and running into the same problems everybody else is running into.
Yeah, I think the hard part keeps moving. What was the hard part 3 months ago is now not even something we think about, but we have new hard parts, right? The hard part keeps changing shape and moving across the space. And the space is moving very faster, and it seems to be accelerating in how fast it's moving. I mean, when you think about RapidStart CRM, has been around for 10 years, basically with just tweaks, right? We went in, tweaked a little bit here, added a capability because of a new feature that was launched, deprecated something that was no longer supported, just tweaks. But the basic thing is the same. That's not the case with AI solutions. I mean, RapidClaw, that'll, in 2 months, that's maybe a little longer, I hope, but in 2 months, that's going to look like a quaint toy.
Yep.
Unless you continue to evolve it. And we're at a point where the expectation, at least of those in the space, the expectation is rising very fast too. So what today we look at and go, man, that is amazing. 2 weeks from now will just be normal and kind of boring. And what have you done lately? Will be the new thing. So where this hurts folks like us who are in the builder side is that there's no such thing as build and maintain anymore. It's build and then rebuild and then rebuild again and then rebuild again. It's a continuous rebuilding. There's no maintenance level. There's no maintenance. I mean, that's where we used to make money, right? You spend all the money building something, launch it, sit back and make money with a little maintenance and tweaks while you're making money. Well, that part's gone. Now we're just building continuously, which is a little frustrating. But we don't, I do think that there's the potential that the acceleration of these models will slow down because of the Fable incident.
Yeah.
I think that what Fable demonstrated, rightly or wrongly, is that a government can come in and say, okay, I'm putting the brakes on this, right? They apparently reached a point, whether validly reached it or not, where the government decided, we need to turn this off. But it shows you the government can decide to turn something off. Well, all these models are converging. They're all going to be able to do what Fable, Mytho, they're all going to be able to do these things in a very short period of time. So are they all going to hit that same wall and all be shut off? And will all be knocked down to the lesser models? I mean, is there, it has felt like there's an unlimited path to the intelligence that we're going to get out of these things, but maybe there is a limit. Maybe we're only going to be allowed to go this far. And I think we may be getting very close to that. Very close to that limit where that's as much as, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, we're able to do amazing things today,
Yeah.
but we may be nearing the end of.
Well, I think we just hit the wall, and the wall is a different wall, I think, even than you described. But I thought you were going to go there, but you didn't quite. So I'm gonna take it all the way there, just because I feel like I need to get on my conspiracy bandwagon here for a second. It feels like, with the government shutting it down, they've set now the precedents that there is now public consumable large language models acceptable for general business and public use. Once you get to the Mythos level or near AGI level, it's now closed. It is now used for industrial, military, industrial complex type purposes, or national security, or whatever it may be. DeepSeek is now stages away from any of that anyway. And so the fact is that I think even if the United States has done it, other countries may follow suit, is probably what I'm going to guess, especially China. I don't know if you guys have watched the news lately or read anything in the last week or two with regards to, I can never pronounce it properly, Huawei or something like that. They're the cell phone manufacturing company, but they have built a mega cluster of these cheaper, crappier chips. But the secret to the sauce has nothing to do with the chips. They have put them in scale, and their secret to their sauce is the infrastructure and the instruction set about how to coordinate all these lesser chips who's been stuck by all of the sanctions and things, regulations saying that they can't have access to. Well, they're like, you know what? It doesn't matter. We don't need the powerful chips. We're just going to scale this thing up. Of course, it's a power hog, but China's got this huge power infrastructure, so it's a minimal cost to them. But the point here is that NVIDIA's strongest GPU is now 5 to 4 times slower than this new mega thing, the Huawei. Can somebody pronounce that company? Huawei. Okay, yeah.
Huawei.
How, what they've built is just incredible. So if they take that and throw DeepSeek on top of that and then try to go to the next level, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they try to plant the seed of destruction from their point of view and just say, hey, let mayhem fall where it may, and release it that way. And then, of course, then the United States is going to have to release theirs, and it's just a race to the bottom, so to speak. Or they close it off, just like the United States did, and then you're going to see the fragmentation of public versus governmental, private type LLMs, and that's where I think things start to get scary, which tells me AGI is never going to be available to the public.
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, again, I know we're running out of time here, but one thing I found out this week that I didn't know: from the time it takes to convert the silicon into a shipped GPU, what is the calendar date between those two occurrences? You want to make a guess?
3 weeks.
2 years.
Huh?
2 years.
Ooh.
From a supply chain. So you got to understand, 2024 was really when everybody was quite sold that AI was it, right? And then I am sure the big people of Google and Amazon knew at that point it was a thing and that they needed to build their own chips because of the price. 98% profit is what I understand NVIDIA sells their chips.
Wow.
So I think the future of AI is going to be affordability. Everybody focused on market share. Now it's going to be how can we profit off of it? And if you look at Amazon with their Trainium chips, you look at Ironwood with Google, in, different worlds there. Trainium is for training AI models, where it's like 90% more cost effective using their chips than anybody else's. And then you look at the comparative of Ironwood on the Google side is the same kind of 90% cost effective on the inference side. I believe we're moving into the business concept of sanity with AI as the next step, where it's going to be about profitability. It's going to be, unfortunately, I think NVIDIA stock has or is about to reach its peak, because these other things, it takes 2 years to go from silicon to GPU. If that's the case, it takes probably 6 months to design these things. Knowing corporate America as I know, it takes 6 months to negotiate deals. So you're looking at NVIDIA had a 3 to 4, maybe a 3 to 5 year lead because of Bitcoin using those GPUs. So, I can tell you, if I had a couple $100 billion, where I would spend time is going after where margins were 98%. So I think that competition is coming, and that's going to allow us to have cheaper AI. And I think models are going to get more complex. Yes. Just like you all were saying. I have a firm believing that I don't think we ever get to AGI in the concept of an AI god. I think we're just going to get moving closer and closer from the 86% accuracy, and hoping to get around 92, 93. I think that's going to be where we're playing. Some people say it is it's the top, that we've hit a plateau. I guess it's depending upon your concept of, hey, how valuable is 6% accuracy? Because I think that's where their focus is just trying to get those frontier models tuned to just the right to get higher accuracy. But as far as I can tell, everybody is solving the same problem of inaccuracy by just trying 10 times an averaging result. So, that's where I see things are changing on the AI front. I don't think we're plateauing. I think we're getting to a point where everybody needs to realize we need to make money off this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't think the public should have AGI. I don't think, when we look at what the public does when they're given too much, they do bad things with it. I don't think there's any upside in government, military, et cetera. They're never going to let it happen anyway, which is maybe why we're getting close to a plateau in just straight on higher intelligence. But there's probably still some width area they can work in. But my problem today has nothing to do with how smart the models are. They are completely smart enough today to do everything I want to do with them in my space. Now, I'm not trying to solve cancer. I'm not trying to fold proteins. I'm building business applications and stuff like that. So they're fully capable of doing that. Our biggest challenge isn't the intelligence of the model, it's time and coming up with the right ideas in face of what everybody else is thinking as they're looking at all this stuff. So, I try and look at everything. Yeah, whatever happens in China happens in China. I can't influence or have any effect on the outcome of that. So what can I influence and have out and what I'm doing for myself and my business? So I kind of stay focused on where is that. Right now, I got no complaints with AI. I got no complaints with the cost, which we said before. I think those subscriptions are going to go away and the costs are going to go up. What will eventually bring them back down will be massive data centers coming online, which take a long time to build. But once there's enough of that out there, naturally, that cost will come down. We're all paying a premium right now because compute's so high, and rarity of chips, as you said, stuff like that. But those are all, I mean, that's what entrepreneurs do, right? Is they look for those gaps, those blockages, and bring resources to solve them, because that's where they'll make the 90% and 8% margin, is by finding those gaps. And so I'm confident that they'll eventually be solved. But like I said, in my mind, what it does today is everything I would need it to do. That's not my blocker. My blocker is not that it's not at 96% intelligence. It's smart enough. The blockers for me lay elsewhere, and probably for most of the people in our industry too. You know.
Steve, where can people find more information? Is this the correct site?
That would be the place to start. You can see we got RapidClaw right up there in the top menu where we're talking about that. We've also launched, which I'll leave you a little teaser, a new application in the last couple of days called RapidStarter, which is the CRM that builds itself.
Nice.
This is a hosted service. This is closer to that idea I told you about. You go to a website, push a button, and use it. Basically, the concept is all of your CRM information already exists in Outlook and your calendar across your team. So we're going to go look at all that stuff, figure out what of that is CRM related, and just build it for you. So that's something people should be looking at. Getting away from the per user model, which everybody's going to have to do eventually. So.
And then I assume they just fill out the form here, and that you, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, that you or somebody from your team will get back to them?
Yes, a RapidClaw agent will respond.
Nice. Well, they can actually give it a shot for themselves and take it for a test drive. Also saw that you had a video up there too, so that would be something interesting to watch as well. Anything else that you want folks to know before we wrap up, Steve?
No, I think it's been a good chat. I'm kind of doing the tour now, getting around on some podcasts, and I mentioned before we started that you were one of the early influences for me back in February of 23. I think you had you were on the cutting edge in our space anyway. I've launched some AI stuff.
Yep.
And kind of helped open my eyes. So I appreciate that. You point the direction, at least shining the flashlight in the direction where we're all going now.
Yeah, AI was not too many places, and I was like, you know what? This is just APIs at the end of the day. Let's just plug it into the Power Platform. Let's wire it up. Let's see what this thing can do. And then people were like, that's pretty cool. So
we're all tinkerers, right?
Exactly. That's all it is. Well, for everybody watching the show, if you're not familiar, Transformation Leaders Podcast, we're here every Wednesday at 12 o'clock noon. Steve has got this really interesting tool and AI that's integrated within the Power Platform / D365 space. So if you're in the Microsoft stack and looking for something cutting edge and leading edge, give Steve and his team a call. Otherwise, you can catch each of us here again every Wednesday on the Transformation Leaders Podcast. And you can go to our website by visiting this very long URL. Unlike Steve, who has a nice short and condensed one, we've got a mouthful here. So we'll pop that up on the screen so you can see what that looks like. But Steve, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Great following you online, and look forward to seeing all of the articles that you create. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.